participation. And the first public participation item on our agenda is the Christchurch Youth Council, Dom Wilson and Amy Knudsen but it looks like just Dom Wilson, not just. We have Dom Wilson to present on the work of the CYC and plans for future work. Welcome, very much welcome.
Cool. Thank you for having me. As the Mayor said, my name is Dom, and I have the privilege of co-leading the Youth Council for 2020. The Youth Council is unique compared to other youth councils across the country because we're actually not under you guys. We're an incorporated society, which means we're for youth, by youth, quite literally, as our board or executive committee is made up of young people. Today I'm here to keep you guys updated as our elected officials on what the Youth Council is doing, and so feel free to jump in with any questions you have throughout me speaking too. Our organisation has a guiding set of principles which we updated at the end of last year to continue to show how we grow as an organisation. These are to support and strengthen youth voices, to encourage active citizenship, to create inclusive spaces for young people, to foster and build networks and relationships, and to celebrate and uplift diversity. Another part of our key principles is being non-partisan as an organisation as well. As I mentioned, our relationship with you guys is unique because we don't sit under you guys. Back in 2014, the Youth Council found itself under a bunch of umbrella organisations. So at that point, we made the choice to become independent. And in about a week and a half, that's 6 years since we made that decision. In doing that, it means we are able to get a really authentic for youth, by youth mantra going. However, it means relationships with people like CCC hasn't necessarily been as simple. We, however, have an MOU with the City Council. This is a guiding piece of the relationship between our two organisations. It's currently under review at the moment and has been in place for over 3 years, so we want to make sure it can be as accountable and measurable for both sides. While I'm here, I just want to go over some of the projects we've already run this year because it's been quite a few. In January, we ran a beach cleanup down at Sumner Beach, which had about 30 people show up to help. We supported the City Council in holding the Youth Standing Committee hui at Turanga last month. This had over 65 young people attend to have their say on the committee, which was really super exciting to see. And just this month, we held an environmentally sustainable market for the future down at the youth space. We had 13 stallholders and hundreds of people attend, which was also a really cool opportunity to see more environmentally sustainable stuff. Future projects we'll be running is we'll be holding an event for Pride Week, and we'll be looking at new projects and events around being environmentally sustainable / climate change, mental health, the upcoming central government elections, and more. All of these will be based around our kaupapa and guiding principles. As always, please feel free to check us out on social media, as that's where we update a lot of the work we do. But thank you for having me speak today, and we still have a minute if there's any questions.
Well, we don't usually have questions in the public participation, but you have allowed a minute, so I'll be a little bit gentle on you. I have asked the Chief Executive whether we could actually make this a more formal structured reporting by mutual agreement. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously not as a requirement, but which would put it on the agenda as an item and maybe even have a written report. Mm-hmm. And I suggested that the Chief Executive could talk to Councillor Anne Galloway, who holds the portfolio, and with her youth advisory group that she's, or whatever it is going to be, that she's setting up at the moment, the standing committee, then I think she's got she's got some potential there. So maybe if I just hand over to Anne in the first instance.
We are really working hard on understanding the relationship, how we're going to work together in partnership, and how this Youth Advisory Committee will work. So a strong foundation being built, and that would be fabulous to actually have that channel through to Council. That would be excellent, thank you. Because,
I mean, a 5-minute public participation is not sufficient, I think, for what you've really challenged us on and continue to challenge us on. You know, this has been an ongoing conversation. It hasn't been something just suddenly out of the blue. Jimmy, was it you?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for your dedication. Fantastic also over the last several years. You have done a fantastic job. But I just have one question. You particularly emphasize your youth council on behalf of diversified community. I just want to know a moment in your the youth council members, how many from the different ethnic group on behalf of them? Yes.
Yeah, diversity is something that as an organisation we've really come to acknowledge to the fact that we're not necessarily as diverse as we could be as an organisation. I've heard stories about the fact that there was a time back in 2012, 2013 where it was nicknamed the Stack Youth Council because it was had an influx of members from St Andrews. In regards to current diversity, particularly with Māori and Pacifica, that's something we're looking at. There's definitely a lot of work that we need to do to become a more multicultural, but I think personally, at least the first steps is that we understand and acknowledge that and are working with other organisations like Pilot and things to see how we can work together to make our organisation more multicultural, more diverse and more reflective of youth voice in Christchurch. It's now part of our kaupapa, which is part of the reason we updated our kaupapa at the end of last year, was to put that in so it can be a part of our guiding principles to ensure it's something really important that we focus on.
Yeah, no, look, thanks very much, Dom, and we'll leave it there. Thanks very much. And given the noise from the back of the room, can I just remind people to turn their mobile phones onto silent? We have a mechanism for charging our councillors for breaches of said rule, but no mechanism. We just rely on people's goodwill and good nature to keep their phones on silent during the course of the meeting. Thank you very much. Now, if we could move on to Donna and Gary Brentsall, if you'd like to come forward.
We will attempt to get the video running. We couldn't get any sound working, so we will, if you'd like to introduce yourselves, and then we'll try the video. Yes. And my apologies if it doesn't work.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So I'm ready to go.
We have a video that we'd like to show if we can. Lasts about 1 minute.
Residents in a North Christchurch suburb say they're living in fear, afraid of an explosion near their backyards. That's because of a local operation by a gas bottling company that includes services it doesn't have resource consent for. Here's Jordan Oppett.
Locals in North Christchurch are worried this gas bottling site is a ticking time bomb.
There should be an immediate abatement notice issued to stop work immediately, because if something happens in between now and when they do decide it will or will not happen, the blood is on their hands.
And by they, these residents mean the council.
And as you can see, for the lack of security, nothing's fenced off. Anybody's got access to the valves on the bottle. The multitude of breaches we see is mind-boggling.
Donna and Gary Brentsall, who own a motel next door, have pleaded with the council for nearly 2 years to close this gas refilling and distribution depot down. Some nights there are hundreds of cylinders just metres away from their sleeping guests.
LPG is a dangerous gas and it's to be treated with respect.
In July last year, many of these residents heard the explosion at this Northwood home in a neighbouring suburb. It was caused by a gas leak.
Haven't we learned from what's happened at Northwood? You know, that gas is extremely dangerous.
The Genesis gas depot, which extends onto a Caltex site, has consent for gas sales, but not for refilling. In a statement, the council says it's liaising with the operators in relation to the matter, and if reasonable progress isn't made, it'll consider escalating enforcement action.
It concerns me that this whole community is at some risk.
Because when I work here, I can actually smell gas at times.
Locals just want it gone. Jordan Oppett, One News.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. We're here today in regards to the resource consent application and process for the LPG distribution depot at 315 Main North Road, Redwood. We must express our disappointment in the treatment we've received during the last 20 months over our concerns. In recent times, we've heard of promises and learning from the past mistakes and keeping the people of Christchurch safe. Well, what about Redwood? Do we not have a right to feel safe? We've always felt that this would be dealt with, and we had faith that the people employed, funded by the ratepayer to keep us safe, would enforce the rules that are put in place to do so. Nearly 2 years on now, after countless inquiries, we've been informed that under a discretionary clause that you think it's okay to have an LPG depot operating in a residential zone. With council flats on one side and a motel on the other, we just don't understand the reasoning. And where is the duty of care? This just may be another day at the office decision for you, but for you, this is our life. It's every day. Put yourselves in our shoes. Would you want to live next door to this dangerous activity? There are rules and regulations associated with dangerous goods that are strictly enforced, but there appears to be major failings in this example. Experts in the LPG industry are in disbelief that this operation has been allowed to continue. Surely your town planners would think that this operation belongs in a commercial zone away from residents. After the TV exposure of residents' concerns, Genesis did something within 2 days that should have been done long ago. They ceased the operation until it could be determined that it was an appropriate location for this activity and complied with all the regulations. Finally, someone is listening to us and understands. The EPA had already declined an initial request to expand, and it was made by Rock Gas, who was the supplier at the time, but it was built anyway. And after years of operation, a retrospective consent application is now being considered, which appears to have dispensation of the rules of today's standards. A council employee within the consenting compliance group informed us that an alarm bell should have rung when the huge underground tank was consented, as this was in excess of regular service station requirements. Safety is only one of our concerns. There's amenity, air quality controls, and the noise. Having been in an existing operation, we're well aware of the noise violations that we have to endure. Abatement notices have been issued, but still every day a tanker truck fills the underground tank. It is in excess of the allowable decibels. The banging and the clanging of the 45 kg cylinders as early as 5:30 is not conducive with our sleeping guests, and it continues until 7 p.m. Privacy is another issue, as the platform overlooks a fence straight into their units. With all this being said, we are unsure if you can appreciate the full extent of this operation. It is imperative that a qualitative and quantitative risk assessment is carried out on the effects of the cylinder filling facility. New Zealand legislation prescribes 15 metre separation from neighbours, but we have 6 metres. We are unsure whether the resource consent process was going to be notifiable, even though we are affected persons with more than minor adverse effects. We felt that we had to put forward our objections via this process and convey our utter frustrations to our treatment in this drawn-out process. Having just been made aware, we and the wider community are gravely concerned that an application has been made to seek commencement of the gas filling activity under existing use rights. We recognise that the public forum is an appropriate place to discuss this, and we would seek an urgent meeting with the Council Chief Executive. Thank you for your time.
Look, thank you, and I let you run over time. It was because it was important that you told your whole story.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much for coming. And I did manage to talk to the Chief Executive prior to having looked quickly through your submission and got to the final point. She'll arrange for one of her senior members of her team to talk to you after the meeting, and an appointment will be arranged.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'll move now to my public forum. Just to explain, I have been assisting Gary and Donna with this matter.
Sorry, but we'll allow you to leave and compose yourselves, but we'll get a staff member to speak to you. Yeah. Sorry, we'll just deal with this first, if you don't mind. Thank you. Yep. Right, thank you. So now, so the next public forum is David Lynch speaking to the Canterbury Earthquakes Royal Commission final report.
Thank you very much. Look, I don't intend to go through this full submission. Firstly, just to explain that in the 22 years that I've been providing advocacy for a variety of clients, the situation that you've seen this morning is one of the most appalling situations I've ever seen this council place good people in this community under. The Canterbury Earthquake Royal Commission, as you'll recall, found that this council was seriously wanting in respect to the collapse of the CTV building. And recently, this full council endorsed a statement given by the Mayor which gave reassurances that this city is far safer. And we accept that this city has learned, and we do have good, robust approaches to our engineering. However, I'm now going to highlight some situations that I believe warrant this council considering an independent and urgent audit. So I'll draw your attention to page 2. As I said, while significant progress has been made to improve our buildings following the events in Canterbury, it's widely acknowledged that we cannot afford to be complacent about earthquakes and the devastation caused to our community. The public expectation following the 22nd of February 2011 was that changes would be made to improve the safety with new and existing buildings so that fewer families would ever face the loss of loved ones, as so many did 9 years ago. As previously mentioned in this address, I believe there is a systemic problem within the resource consent, building consent, compliance, monitoring and enforcement undertaken by this City Council. Here are a few examples. 230 High Street consented with 10 serious engineering flaws. Between 2015 and 2017, the Council issued the consents, and now this building has been confirmed to have significant major deficiencies. We understand the future of the building is unlikely that it will remain, but the most concerning aspect of all of this is council staff, when questioned, was 230 High Street an isolated case, could not give any certainty that it wasn't. In other words, we could be looking at similar buildings in the city that may have significant or engineering issues. We hope that that isn't the case, and we're surprised that this council has remained silent for some time without providing any reassurances to inform people otherwise. Then we had the situation, as reported in the press on the 17th of June 2020, Christchurch Council uncertain if quake-prone buildings are following the law. What we saw in the article was a council completely removed and out of touch with its legal obligations to ensure that the 700 buildings that have seismic deficiencies have the appropriate notifications, which the government, following the Royal Commission, said was required with all councils. Why are we facing this 9 years after the earthquakes? We also had the situation recently of faulty concrete in a cycleway. Now, this is quite a minor matter, but the question arises, this council administering those contracts is asleep at the wheel when we have to have concrete ripped up from a cycleway, and it raises the question, are there other examples of projects that the council is involved in where they haven't got appropriate control on how the projects are being managed? As our client has reflected this morning, their experience in dealing with this council over the past 20 months has reached a point where they're devastated, and they were at a loss last night to hear that this council is now apparently in negotiations to pursue still a retrospective resource consent on the basis that the existing operation has some existing use rights. So in conclusion, what should happen? What must happen? There must be an audit to fully review some of the issues that I've raised and many others that we know haven't been raised publicly. This council owes it to the people of the city to ensure that lessons have been learned and that we do have a safe city and we can move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and that's just perfect timing. Thank you. The next public one is...
Diane White.
Sorry, we've got just writing them in. Diane White. Thank you. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having us speak at short notice. As you can see, we have some supporters here who would all like to have a voice, but we just have 5 minutes. So I'm going to need to abbreviate what it is that we need to say. But carrying on from this learned gentleman who just spoke, someone smarter than me wrote this out for me to say, is why, and I have just handed you, Ms Mayor, the Plan Change 54 that was made back at the time of the earthquakes, 2010, and we actually have a neighbour who was there. The meeting was in a bar in town somewhere, the council chambers weren't working, and submissions were put in for Calder Stewart to turn 301 and 305 Marshes Road eventually to where we are now, from a green belt area to a toxic hazard waste facility, processing materials that cannot go to a normal landfill. And I don't have the list of those here today, but you can imagine everything, including soft body tissue, formaldehyde, all the leftover oils from the restaurants in town. They are going to be taken in 600 extra truck movements a day, and what has just been okayed last week, and we're told that 4 properties on the corner of Springs Road and Marshes Road are going to have their land acquisitioned if they don't pay the state a decent price to create a 65-metre roundabout for these trucks to come in. And can you imagine getting to town? We can hardly even get to town now. And this is all of the South Hornby area, Wigram. All of us will be affected by this toxic waste processing plant. So this gentleman that gave me this said, can extensive objective investigations be made, because there were decisions made from this since 2010 that have changed it from rural 2 to business 5 to heavy industry. Now the other day I called up, they dropped a container in the night. At the moment they're only processing paper. They have stacks of it. It's a total fire hazard at the moment because the ships aren't going to China, so they're concerned that something may happen to that. So I called your sound people about making too much noise at night. The lady told me that heavy industry, pretty much they can do what they like, when they like, 24/7 to any decibels. Waste Management tell me that they try to keep it under 95. But that is actually the least of our worries. Our worries are that back on that 54, when that was first okayed, it was okayed with the fact that there were strict conditions. These have not been carried through. There was going to be a whole lot of native planting. There was going to be 40-metre setback down to 20-metre setback. Now it's gone to no setback. The Little River Trail was going to be helped. People were going to be able to bike and run and walk there. And now the thing is, because I've got so little time, I have to hurry. 2005, Cape Valley was set up by all the Canterbury councils for waste to go to there. That was it. That was the solution. But now we're having this done in your backyard. It's the very corner of your backyard. It's also our backyard. And without thought for the unrefined aquifers, the endangered skinks, the water that's going to throw, you may think you don't live near there. The water is going to go down the Heathcote. If you walk at the bottom of Cashmere where I used to live, it's going to go out to Lake Ellesmere. If you like flounders, they're going to be covered in toxicity. Because last night I went to the Alpine Fault meeting. When the Alpine Fault goes, it's going to be up to 35 times more than the February quake. I was up by Victoria Park on that day. 35 times more. So you cannot tell me, and I've had meetings with Waste Management, that 35 times more quake is going to be held by the bunding of the bricks that they're going to put around that place. They've also, Christchurch City Council has allowed extra stormwater, extra sewage. Originally on that 54, they were told that only dry processing was going to be there, which was warehouse with very low labour because they couldn't even flush toilets. That the water table is so high at 8 metres. So I'm sorry that I'm slightly going over, but we can send you through something. We would love to have a meeting again with you. We did not know that we needed to book in. We'd like to talk this through with you and find a solution because, yes, you people may not have been part of who's made these choices, but you are in powerful seats now and you are all we have left. We have a letter from ECAN. They're doing submitting for people within 500 metres. In Auckland, you get up to 1 kilometre. So we want to be heard. This is in your backyard. The decisions were made during the earthquake times, and we feel that there should be investigation to do this so that we're all happy. I mean, this is a great service Waste Management are doing, but you don't want it in a residential area. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much, and you know, I just acknowledge the challenges that these issues raise in relation to the application of the Resource Management Act, the rules that we enforce, the rules that ECAN enforces, and it's particularly challenging. I mean, we've had the same issue raised in relation to the interface, but on the other way round, where an activity proposed in the Selwyn district has an impact on our residents in the Templeton area. So it's that all of these issues come together in an extremely challenging way, and we raised this as a governance to governance issue with ECAN the other day for this very reason. But look, this came in through the system. I've asked for further advice from staff on it. I've received some advice. I'd like to be able to sit down and work through some of those issues with the council staff, with the chief executive and others, in order to better understand. Because the last thing that we want to do is to put you into a situation to discuss things with people who can't change anything. Yes. So we want to be able to find out what the solutions are, yes, and then start to work through all of those with you. I think that often when we're offering guidance from a council, we're offering guidance to people as to how to use the Resource Management Act to get things done, to proceed with developments, but often we end up with communities who want to challenge the development being done for a whole lot of incredibly valid reasons. So, but some of them are with ECAN, as you've identified, and some of them are with the City Council. The traffic one, the noise one, they're with us, and the impact on the environment, the pollution in the air, they are all with ECAN. So, can rather than making the same offer that we made the previous submitter, can I just offer to say that we've got this on our radar as an organisation, both at a governance level and at a staff level, and we'll come back through the people that have sent us the overarching submissions. But again, we've had really detailed information, quite technical information. You've raised another set of information today about the sequencing of the decisions that applied, and once we've got an opportunity to go through all of those, we'll make sure that it's all very transparent and we find a mechanism for engaging with you so that we both understand what the way forward is.
And may I just mention one other thing which has actually come out of Blue as well, is that the New Zealand government through an initiative is paying also, totally, Waste Management are not paying at all, to have a tyre shredding plant put there as well. Again, using the water that they were concerned about that they weren't going to use. Now this will also be a fire hazard. At the moment they've got all the paper building up. If we have a quake and there's lots of tyres there, then you know, this is not going to be under
There's probably a number of issues that arise out of the change in the zoning.
Yes,
and as you say, there were two steps to that. One that happened across the earthquakes, and the other one happened as part of the independent hearings panel process and the district plan review. So, and slightly absent anyone sitting around this table. So, anyway, so but you know, that's the undertaking that I'll make to you and to your community, is that we will process all of those issues, work out what the sequence of events is, and then come back to those that are the best ones to communicate with the wider group.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And we have one more, and that's Ross Halliston from the Greater Hornby Residents Association. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ross Holliston, here today to speak on behalf of the Greater Hornby Residents Association. I'm the elected member from our association for liaison with the Prebbleton residents who also have concerns about the toxic plant which is to be located in Marshes Road. As many of you know, we have a following of 5,000 odd on our Facebook page and represent Islington, Hornby, High, Broomfield and part of the Sockburn suburbs. I tend to, it's just a wee piece I haven't put in. You will notice I'm dressed in black. This is normal when people are in mourning. Waipuna area is in mourning because council staff have shown a total lack of respect for this area by issuing consents to put this in here. I tend to speak my mind, so I'll start off with a quote. The difference between a dictatorship and democracy is that with a dictatorship you get told what to do and what is being done. With a democracy you vote first, then get told what to do. This appears to be what has happened in the consent process with waste management. Despite clear instructions from central government that processes must be transparent. Incidentally, I'm sure you'll be aware that this company is owned by Chinese government and not New Zealand owned. No public consultation was called, so our residents in our area could be consulted, therefore denying them their democratic right to speak out on whether locals wanted this or not. This is once again exactly the process the Ombudsman criticised last year. To the layman, it would appear that city planners have no regard for the citizens, only big business. Greater Hornby Residents Association therefore asks this consent be placed on hold and a full and open consultation process take place. Contaminants will be carried out over Hornby to Wigram, as well as Prebbleton and surrounding businesses by prevailing winds. To think otherwise is a bit like an ostrich hiding its head in the sand. Word has it tyres are to be shredded on site. When a fire starts in this equipment or tyre pile, the toxic smoke has to go somewhere, just like other toxic products on site. There's also a question over a roundabout that's to be installed. Why are the ratepayers or taxpayers expected to pay for this when it's clearly for a business that's not New Zealand owned? This plant is to go ahead, which we are opposed to, as we have our community at heart. The GHRA would request that permanent full monitoring equipment be installed around the perimeter of Waste Management's holding ground. Then a repeat of this equipment at 250 metres, 500 metres and 750 metres. This equipment should be supplied at the applicant's expense, should include dust, smell monitors as well as noise control decibel meters. The approved level should not be exceeded and the meters should come under the control of an independent authority. I have a Lagoima request which I put in this morning and I can read it. 1. A full list of all toxic items to be processed by waste management on site. A full list of all chemicals to be processed at the above site. A full list of all toxins to be held at the above site, and a full list of all chemicals to be held at the site. Full list of all other items to be kept on site. A full list of all toxins and chemicals to be recovered at this site. Full list of all hazards on the site. A full health and safety plan for the site listing all hazards. 9, as Cape Valley was meant to be the planned location for this type of operation, who exactly is taking responsibility for this being done within the city boundaries and why? Now, I have here a face mask. And I am wondering if that's going to be the normal colour of face masks around Hornby, Prebbleton, etc. in future. You'll notice it's coloured red. We do not want this toxic element in our area. Thank you.
Again, look, thanks very much. And do you know what I really valued about your submission is that Greater Hornby residents have lined up with the Prebbleton residents across the I mean, I don't know, do you notice the boundary between the Selwyn District and the Christchurch City Council when you drive down the road? No, you don't. You know, you just don't go, at this minute I'm crossing into Selwyn. And we really are all part of Greater Christchurch, and this needs to be a Greater Christchurch solution. And, you know, so look, thank you very much for making your public participation this morning. Because they're just 5-minute presentations, they're just really short opportunities to state the case. As I said to the previous person, that to Diane White, that, and I make the same offer to you, and obviously because you're the spokesperson for the liaison for the Greater Hornby Residents Association, we'll be in touch with you as well. Thank you very much.
There is just one wee thing. That land would be better used for the storage of their trucks, which they are currently parking around the open roads in the Selwyn district. They have got no parking space for their own trucks.
Right. Yeah, I will be talking to the Chief Executive about the next steps, but we will be in touch.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, the